We start in France, where a criminal court has delivered its verdict in the Gisele Pelicot mass rape trial. Dominique Pelicot has been found guilty of all charges after drugging and raping his former wife for nearly a decade. The verdicts against 50 other men accused of rape and sexual assault are still being read out. Gisele Pelicot has become a feminist hero around the world for choosing a public trial in an effort to help other rape victims. People have been gathering outside the court in a show of solidarity and cheered her as she arrived. The trial has stretched over more than 3 months and spurred calls for tougher measures to stamp out sexual violence. Straight to DW correspondent Lisa Louie, who is inside the court in Avignon in southern France. Welcome, Lisa. So a guilty verdict against the ex-husband. What else can you tell us?
Well, right now the judges are reading out the different verdicts for the about 50 accused here in Avignon. So far, all of them have been found guilty, maybe not of all charges, but overall it seems like the judges are indeed moving into that direction. The sentences, so how many years they could possibly spend in prison, that will be announced right afterwards.
Right. And what sort of lengths are they looking at?
Well, they're looking at, up to 18 years in prison for everybody apart from the ex-husband, who could face up to 20 years in prison. That's at least what the accusation have been asking for. Mind you, many people here at this courthouse feel that, demonstrators outside feel that there should be really tough sentences in this case so that it could mark a watershed. Possibly they're saying it is obvious that this happened because there are videos, and these people should now be found guilty and sentenced to long time in prison. We will obviously see what will happen later on.
This is a case that has attracted attention from around the world, and unusual in that the victim in this, Gisele Pelicot, gave up her rights to anonymity.
Well, that's right. That's really quite impressive, and that's what people have been repeating over and over again here in France, where the media have been covering this really on a daily basis in great detail, but also around the world. It is extraordinary, one must say, that this woman who has shown such a great amount of dignity every time she walked into this building, people were clapping, they were just admiring her. She seemed so strong, and yet she said, inside I'm devastated. I'm absolutely destroyed by what has happened to me. And yet she insisted that these videos should be shown to the public so that everybody should know about what had happened to her, and that shame could finally be shifted to the aggressors and not actually to the victims.
And this case, does it stand to change the law there in France?
Well, that's what people are hoping for, especially the feminists I've been talking to earlier today, but also yesterday. There is a group here which is called, the Amazons of Avignon, who have been putting up phrases that were said inside the courtroom on walls across the city. So they are saying, this should really be a moment where things start to change. They have been underlining, which is correct actually, that in many cases, in many rape cases, there is no guilty verdict. It's very difficult apparently for judges in France, or maybe also around the world, to say, we're going to send someone who has maybe raped a woman or someone else to prison. So they want this to change. They want tougher sentences. They want also people to do some soul searching. How can society be restructured so there is not that domination, what they call male domination, that leads to such excesses that are really no longer acceptable. Just keep in mind that during that court case, these 4 months of trial, lots of the accused have been saying, we didn't know, she hadn't given her consent. While Gisele Pelicot, actually, when these things were happening, she was either asleep or unconscious. Sometimes she was snoring.
And on that point, given that this case has gone around the world, people in a lot of jurisdictions are looking at this and saying, well, how is that possible? How is it possible that consent is not a factor when it comes to rape and sexual assault in France?
Well, that's exactly the question many people are asking themselves, and there are also some people saying, you know, we should change that rule. There should not be this just the definition of rape that is enshrined in French law, but there should also be a definition of an active definition of consent. So that would mean that people would have to give their active agreement, and if they don't, then any sexual act is considered as as sexual assault or rape. So some people at least, asking for that change to happen here as well.
Thank you for that, Lisa. Louie in Avignon.